Now, I'm recording this video at 11 a.m. It's Saturday, it's November 5th, meaning that if this video comes out later, then I don't know if all the information that we talk about in this audio commentary is up to date. But I'm going off of things the way that they appear to be at the time of me talking into this microphone, and those things don't really seem to be all too great from the perspective of development and whether or not this is actually the right thing to do. Let's go over to the Toronto Maple Leafs and talk about Nick Robertson, one of my favorite families in the NHL. Of course, I always have to throw it out there because I am a fully Filipino dude. I was born over there, moved over here to Vancouver when I was 1.5 years old as an independent immigrant with my parents. So anytime there is some Filipino stuff going on with the sport of hockey, it always tugs at my heartstrings. And Nick Robertson and his brother Jason, they have been part of that love. The thing is, though, when it comes to Nick Robertson and his deployment with the Toronto Maple Leafs, it appears that he's going to be scratched for the second straight game against the Boston Bruins. He had already been scratched once, but it appears that he's going to be out of the lineup once more as the team plays the Boston Bruins later today. Okay, it's today for me. I don't know if it's going to be today for you, or tomorrow, or yesterday. No, not tomorrow. That doesn't really work out. But either way, Robertson's scratch has been quite intriguing to the point that you have other NHL insiders going out there and talking about the situation as if it could be somewhat of a beginning to an end? I don't know. Let's go over onto Kevin Weeks' Twitter account and read what he has to say. Hard to believe Nick Robertson is being scratched, and he isn't a fixture in the lineup. Mason Marchment is a good player the Maple Leafs let get away. Time will tell if this happens with Nick Robertson. Now, this is one individual comparison that doesn't necessarily align the most, but I do kind of see where Kevin Weeks is coming from. The Maple Leafs have had players in their organizations in the past that they ended up giving up that eventually turned out to be really good players after the fact. Now, I'm not going to go out there and say that Mason Marchment is Connor McDavid or anything, nor am I going to say that he was supposed to be as good as he is right now back when he was on Toronto. But Weeks is pretty much arguing, saying, hey, if the development with Robertson continues down this path, if he keeps on not getting any games after all the context of him finally breaking onto the Maple Leafs in the first place, then who knows what the future is going to hold. Now, for Robertson, he has kind of had this up and down tenure with the Maple Leafs and the Marlies and the Maple Leafs and the Marlies. He's been up and down for years now, and after 2 games played and 2 points with the Marlies this season, he got called up, and it was kind of good because, I mean, he's on his entry-level deal, so he is one of the cheaper players the Maple Leafs have available to them. And he's got 4 points in 6 games played, including that amazing 2-goal performance, including the overtime winner against his brother Jason in Toronto. There was always this extended level of hype with Nick Robertson because he was an offensively gifted, offensively talented, shifty, playmaking, shooting, scoring forward that could play with the top dogs should you decide to put him there. But, of course, if you decide to keep him out of the lineup and play Wayne Simmonds instead, there is a little bit of a differing conversation that arises after the fact. Here's a tweet made by Nick Richard. He is the director of North American Scouting for Dobber Prospects. I'm not a fan of Nick Robertson's usage the last couple of games, and now it looks like he's a healthy scratch. He's been scratched for 2 games since this tweet was made. Questionable decision for a team that is 27th in goals scored per game. Nick Robertson's expected goals for percentage of 43.7% leaves a lot to be desired, but it isn't markedly worse than Nylander or Tavares, and they should be driving the line anyway. The Leafs, however, have 60% of the actual goals. Yeah, I know, the ones that count when Robertson is on the ice at 5v5 so far. Now, I don't want to make it seem like Nick Robertson is going to request a trade because he's scratched for 2 games or whatever, but it is kind of something that I feel like you need to think about at the very least, right? He's been up and down, he's been trying to work his way onto this Maple Leafs roster for a while now, only to being scratched once again for 2 straight games. And for Sheldon Keefe, I mean, it's interesting to see where things are going here, but if you go back over to Kevin Weeks and his comparison, Mason Marchment is the guy that Weeks brings up as the comparable. Hey, Marchment was a guy the Leafs had, they got rid of him, and then he became a star. Now, I know he had a really good season last year, 47 points in 54 games played with the Florida Panthers, under a point per game, and right now, with the Dallas Stars, he's got 8 points in 11 games played, on pace for 30 goals and 30 assists over the span of 82 games. That's a good player right there, especially for a guy signed to 4.5 AAV till the end of 2026. The problem is with Marchment, though, when he left the Maple Leafs organization, he was a bottom-line guy, a pretty good Marlies guy, and not necessarily a player that we had all thought was going to be as good as he is. Like, I know he really did become good, but I don't know if you told me in 2018 or 2019, oh, Marchment? Yeah, that guy's going to become a 47 point in 54 game guy. He's going to be an under point per game player. Like, I don't know if I would have believed you back then, but at the same time, I mean, this is the reply to Kevin Weeks' tweet. Kay Hanley says, Kevin, with all due respect, Marchment was a bottom sixer on our AHL team at the time of the trade. The next reply from Shalashika says, Kevin, with all due respect, Nick Robertson was only playing 8 minutes a night when we traded him. So, there might be some more similarities than meets the eye with this Robertson-Marchment thing, but at the same time, I don't know if I'd really be faulted for saying that I think that Nick Robertson has a higher offensive ceiling than Mason Marchment long term. Obviously, Marchment is 27, Nick Robertson is 21, but there is a little bit of a difference here when it comes to potential, and I mean, I guess the point production speaks for itself too. I mean, Marchment was a guy that was under a point per game, half a point a game-ish with the Marlies, and then he became pretty good. Robertson is already a point per game caliber player with the Toronto Marlies, and he is on pace for 52 points in 77 games played with the regular Maple Leafs if he keeps up his 4-point in 6-game pace over the span of the remaining games on the season. Of course, that's not going to happen because he's not playing all the games, but still, it is something that I feel like you should keep your eye on. So if there is some form of a, I don't know, future change in direction for a guy like Nick Robertson, where do you see this guy ending up? There are some people memeing around in the replies to that Kevin Weeks tweet. Grav went out there and said, Nick Robertson, you are a Dallas Star. And of course, Nathan Grav is a Dallas Stars fan. He's from the area and he likes Jason Robertson. So of course, Nick Robertson playing with his brother would be very interesting to see nonetheless. But either way, if you gave any NHL team the opportunity to add a guy like Nick Robertson to their roster, I don't know if there are many teams that would say no to that type of offer. Of course, it would depend on return, and Robertson, being the guy that he is, all the potential, all the hype, we know he's a small forward, but he's still able to score points. There's a lot of value there, and if the Maple Leafs did end up making a trade sometime soon, they would have to get a pretty good haul. I would imagine there's a few picks thrown in there, maybe even just a regular player that is of significant value gets sent over. I mean, you want to talk about players that are kind of rental situations right now. I mean, Patrick Kane is a big one, and everybody's talking about salary retained, etc., etc., so maybe there's some sort of a fit there. Chychrun, Carlson, you want to talk about defensemen that are pretty expensive? Maybe there's some sort of a big fish player that is tossed into the mix here in Toronto, and Nick Robertson is the ultimate trade chip that is able to make it happen, because obviously any team that's rebuilding would love to have a guy like Robertson on their team. But at the same time, there is cap flexibility things that I do think you need to acknowledge if you're Kyle Dubas and his crew. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Nick Robertson, the way he's been deployed so far, and Sheldon Keefe's overall decision-making when it comes to this player and his development. Are you a fan of how Keefe has been playing him 6 minutes a night, scratching him here and there? I could understand if you're kind of saying, okay, well, maybe there is just a little bit more extended development time that's needed before he's really a solidified NHL player. I know there was an article published by Nick Barton, I believe, talking about why this isn't necessarily the worst move in the world, but at the same time, you take a look at Shane Wright in the Seattle Kraken. Everybody's clamoring for change to happen there because Shane Wright is not playing all too much. Admittedly, he got himself a game over 10 minutes the other night, so that was good to see. But at the end of the day with Nick Robertson, he's not playing flat out. He is getting scratched, and now people are talking about whether or not he is on his way out sometime soon, like Kevin Weeks of NHL Network. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 99, and bye.